Hewitt. Senator Tom Cotton represents the great state of Arkansas. He is chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, as well as being on Armed Services Committee and the head of the Republican Conference. He's also a strong supporter of Israel, so I'm glad he's here because that's one of the topics today. Senator, welcome. I would like to begin by asking you, when do you think Ambassador-designate Waltz will get a vote? Because we're getting hammered at the UN on Israel, and Israel getting hammered at the UN, and we really need a strong voice up there. Any idea?
Hopefully this week, Hugh. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee voted him out of committee last week. We expect to process several dozen nominations this week, and of all those pending nominees, I can think of few who have a more important post or who are more qualified for their post than Mike Waltz. As you said, the jackals are out once again for Israel and by extension, the United States at the UN. We also have the United Nations considering snapback sanctions over the next 30 to 60 days. And of course, every September is the General Assembly. So I think it'd be very important and useful to have the president's personal envoy there confirmed by the Senate by the end of this week.
Well, that is good news to hear. Now, Senator, I don't know if you've heard the Commentary podcast today. You are a friend of Israel. You're a friend of Commentary. So am I to both of them. You've actually been roasted, I believe, at the Commentary Roast, which is coming up in the fall. But John Podhoretz is beside himself today because of this allegation of famine, which is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. There might be food shortages in various parts of Gaza, but that's because of Hamas and because the UN is bad at its job. How does Israel turn around the information war, which seems to be piling up on them with Macron and Starmer and others just heaping it on?
Due to the extent there is any famine in Gaza, it's because Hamas, for as long as it's been in power, has stolen food and used food as a weapon, and that goes especially so since the October 7th atrocity against Israel. If you want to know just how central food is to Hamas's war against its own people, its war against Israel, and its information war against the Western world, you should understand that one of their very top demands in the negotiations in recent weeks has been that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation shut down its operations. What is the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation? It's a new organization set up to deliver food to Gazans outside of the Hamas-affiliated, terrorist-infiltrated United Nations programs inside of Gaza. So just think about that. One of their very top demands is that this charitable foundation stop disseminating food because Hamas uses food as a weapon to stay in power.
Now, if in fact the trucks begin to roll, as Israel has said, they're just going to open up a humanitarian corridor because they can't win this information war with so many left-wingers in media, so they're just going to let trucks roll in every day. Do you think that's a good move or a bad move? I'm not sure what to think about that.
Hugh, I can't comment conclusively on how Israel is going to conduct food aid operations, given the military circumstances on the ground. Obviously, their generals and their political leadership understand the security situation at each particular distribution site better than I do, or better than almost any American would. But I do trust them to do everything they can to try to alleviate any Hamas-imposed suffering on Gazans. I just want to point out, Hugh, what an unusual, I would say, singular standard that the world seems to impose on Israel yet again. Israel was viciously attacked on October 7th without provocation. Its people were slaughtered, children were killed, women were raped, and yet the world expects Israel to provide food to the people from the land that launched that attack. Correct me if I'm wrong, Hugh, but I don't remember food aid going from the United States to Germany and Japan in World War II. Sure, there's a lot of aid after the fact to help those countries rebuild and keep out Russian communism. But in the middle of a war of aggression that was launched against Israel, Israel really has no responsibility whatsoever to provide any kind of aid into Gaza. And the fact that they're doing so just proves that they always go the extra mile because they always face unique standards in the world.
I think you're right, and I also believe that the world's propaganda machine run by leftists will never stop beating up on Israel, so I'm glad to have you say that so succinctly. Now I want to turn to the EU-U.S. trade deal that President Trump announced yesterday. Financial Times headline number one, Germany and France hit out at EU-U.S. deal. Euro slides as investors bet the long-awaited trade agreement will hurt Eurozone economy. Headline number two, how the EU succumbed to Trump's tariff steamroller. So I guess we know who won that negotiation. What do you make of it, Tom Cotton?
I think that's what's sometimes known as an admission against interest in a court of law. As hard as it is for American newspapers to credit Donald Trump with any success, it may be even harder for European ones. Well, I think it's downstream of the point the president has often made in these negotiations is these other nations don't hold the cards. America is both the largest, most productive and innovative economy in the world. We're also the largest single consumer market in the world as well. And it's really a testament to the poor decisions of past presidents and policymakers that we've allowed our allies, much less our adversaries, take advantage of our workers and our consumers so badly. So President Trump is on a hot streak right now with the European Union and Indonesia and Japan, and I look forward, hopefully this week, before the August 1 deadline he gave many countries, for more agreements to be reached.
Yeah, Senator, a lot of people do not understand what non-tariff trade barriers are. How do you explain them to the average constituent, much less a Steelers fan?
Well, I think most Americans understand the concept of red tape with their own government. You know, they've stood in line, been frustrated at the DMV, or had long waits calling in to a government agency. It's basically the same concept. Other countries imposing all kinds of red tape or onerous burdens on American products, even if they don't face a tariff, makes it very hard, if not impossible, to sell our goods in those countries. You know, Europe, for instance, has a lot of unreasonable regulations about genetically modified organisms, GMO foods, that our farmers have used to produce, again, the most bountiful harvests in the world. These are spurious. They don't really address safety grounds. What they are is ways to protect European farmers. If European consumers like, I don't know, purely natural seed or foods produced from seeds that have not been modified anyway, if they like grass-fed beef, that's fine. They can have it. Their supermarkets can advertise for it. But why not give their consumers a choice of America's products? The reason they don't is because they want to protect their own farmers.
Senator Tom Cotton, always good to check in with you. I hope you are right about Michael Waltz, and I hope we continue to talk throughout August, and I hope you get out of town sooner rather than later, because I hear it's pretty miserable in D.C. Thank you, Senator Cotton. Follow him on X at Sen Tom Cotton. Don't forget, we are raising money for Texas.